The next step in my workflow, step number 2, is to pick some music that goes along with what I've shot and retime shots to trim shots even more and make what I've videoed go along with the music that I've chosen. So let's take a look. Music selection can be pretty personal, but it should go along with what you've shown in your video, not take away from what you've shown in your video. Lately, I've really liked this website called Bass Rebels. They give copyright-free music. There are no royalties, no purchase prices, and it's really cool stuff. Step number 1 is to import the music into the video file. Here I begin to listen to the music track and slow down or speed up the clip to hit on the beats that I want. As you can see, I'll listen to it back and forth. I've started really liking to pause the playhead on the downbeat, which then will give me something to aim for as far as slowing down or speeding up the track. So slowing down the first clip to 53% provides a scene change right on the downbeat of one of the phrases of the song. Alternatively, if the speed of the clip is good, but it doesn't end in the right spot, you can trim it. But if you really want it to end on a certain spot, or if your clip is not quite long enough, retiming to an odd percentage can actually work. Looking at the audio peak file below can help line up clips as well. Generally, the beginning of each phrase of the song will have a pretty good peak on the waveform, and you can line your clips up that way as well. Even when I was flying this shot, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Since I was flying in sport mode and the wave was crashing and I was flying right over it, I always knew that I was going to slow it down. Flying forward in sport mode can provide you with enough movement that when you slow it down, you can still tell that the aircraft is moving, even if it's slowed down by a pretty significant amount. So here we'll see it played back at about half speed. I really like this shot. It's pretty hard to believe that it's playing at real time. It looks like it's already been slowed down. And here I'm trimming even more footage off. And since we can always use more slow, I slowed the clip down even more to half speed. Here at the end of the clip, I use the blade to cut at exactly the point that I want to, right on the beat of the music, so that the transition from shot to shot is right there with the music. Right here is one of those times when the video can agree with the audio and the clip can go from a churning ocean straight into a teal water with more serene surroundings, and the video agreeing with the audio means that the whole mood of the presentation can change right on a dime. Listening through the audio track and watching through the video can really help you to put your clips together in a very compelling way, rather than getting through everything as fast as possible and trying to finish your video production. Spending a little bit of extra time and making sure that you've got exactly the right cuts with exactly the right stuff with exactly the right music can really change the way that your video is watched and perceived. This screen recording, just to trim and sync with the music, is about an hour long. Obviously I've compressed it because I'm sure that most people don't want to sit for an hour and watch me mouse around, watch video 10 times through and try and find where I think the best cuts are, but that's a huge part of my process. I really take my time and make sure that I've got exactly what I want in the video. And even so, when I watch through the final product after I've uploaded it to YouTube and made it public and everything, I always see something that I wish that I had caught, and I always think to myself, man, it really would have paid to watch it through one more time. A lot of people, if the shot's getting too long, will cut and slice out a big middle portion of the shot. And one thing I prefer to that is doing what you see here, which is slicing out a middle portion of the shot and not removing it, but rather retiming it so that it flies by really fast. I think it provides a smoother transition and it links the two shots together rather than making a very abrupt transition from one scene to another. So rather than looking like two different shots that are cut together, this looks like one full shot that's been retimed somewhat. And here you again see my trick of retiming the last shot so that even though it looks like it's at full speed, it's only at 78%, which makes the clip exactly the right length to end at exactly the right spot where I want it to end. And if you watch through very, very carefully, you can see that at the very end of this clip, you've got a slight panning maneuver to the left. And since I refuse to have any panning in my videos, because I think that the drone is terrible at it, I cut that out. You can see as we go through this shot that the exposure and the white balance changes, and I have an idea about how to put this together, and it's going to take some work, but I think it can end up being good. And as I think I already mentioned, this is the only shot that I took all day that had us in it, so I definitely want to make sure that it is included in the final product, even though I'm pretty unhappy with it. Here you can see us in the frame. We're just right of the center of the frame, even though I know most people won't be able to tell that that's us. In fact, no one will. I still think it's important to keep that in there. Now that the thumbnails are all next to each other, you can actually see the difference between this shot, this one, which is very different, and the third one, which is even slightly different than the second one. So at this point in the music, there's actually a cymbal rise that I thought was really cool and would work really well with the shot that just happens to line up with it of the wave crashing from left to right. So what I do is I watch it back and forth many times. I find the exact right spot in the audio, which you can see is starting to line up, and I think there's something so cool about the cymbals and the waves moving together. As you can see, I'm definitely not opposed to getting rid of video that I thought was good before, but while watching back during this phase, I find to be uninteresting or just generally not good enough to include. Now we're coming up to a tricky transition because this is one of the major transitions of the video, going from day one into day two. We were at the beach, now we're at a golf course. It was middle of the day, now it is sunrise. Everything changes, so it's important that it be at a logical spot in the music to do the exact same thing. However, I couldn't find exactly what I wanted to do, so I watched this over and over and over and over, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with the clip, and in the end I just did something that I thought came off okay. In hindsight, I maybe could have considered more options, perhaps changing the song, definitely finding a better transition in the music, or something like that that would convey the major change that the video is going through at this point in time. Here we have sort of the opposite maneuver of what I usually do, which is my usual maneuver is to begin the clip at real time, then speed it up really fast, and then finish at real time or thereabouts. In the wave clip that you just saw, I chose to slow it down, go back to real time, and then slow it down at the end again. I thought this shot was really cool. It actually includes a compound camera movement where the drone is flying forward and the camera is tilting down. The hotel stays at about the same spot in the frame, but the shot takes forever to develop, so I did my normal thing again, which is to start at real time, speed up, and then at the end actually slow it down a little bit. Since the clip is actually a really cool shot, I did not want to speed it up by too much and lose the drama, but I did want to get through the whole shot and the whole camera maneuver. So as you can see, marking the end of the transition with the playhead, and then aiming for that while retiming the shot is a really helpful trick to be able to hit exactly the right spot so that your scene changes exactly when you want it to. This shot was a tricky shot because I knew from the very beginning that it wasn't going to be smooth enough that I'd be able to use the whole thing, but I really wanted to include a good part of it because I thought it was so cool. Not only the scene with the sun coming up behind the mountains, the hotel in the foreground, but the arc that the camera is doing. Unfortunately, it just didn't turn out smooth enough for me to be very excited about. And sped up, I think you'll see what I'm talking about. You can see that while the horizontal movement through space is very smooth, the panning motion is very jerky. It's panning and then not panning. It's not smooth. It just didn't come off very well at all. One of my favorite keys is Command Z or undo. I use it a lot. I try out different things. I undo them. I go back. I watch it. I try something different. I go back. I watch that. I think that if you use the same shots over and over again, or the same type of editing over and over again, that you're going to find your final product to be very cookie cutter and boring after a while, and you're going to lose people's interest. Nobody has a technique that is interesting enough that you can use it 100 times and it comes off perfectly well each time. So here I'm trying something different, which is
including only little snippets of the smoothest movements that I could find during the course of the maneuver, but in the end I didn't like this either. Again, Command Z, undo, write that down. So in the end, what I ended up doing is using a small snippet of this maneuver and deleting the rest. Since I didn't want the second shot to be the same as the first one, I retimed it and slowed it down quite a lot. It almost looks like a photograph, but it has just enough movement to it to maintain the drama and to have some interest. In the next video, I'll go over how to make your motion look a little bit smoother, but you can see that when you initially retime a slow motion clip, the video can be a little bit jerky with the frame changes, especially once you get past about halftime. You can actually see the frames changing, but there's a little trick in Final Cut that I'll show you in the next video, and it really helps with that.
So as you can see now, we've lost even more video. What we've kept does a couple of different things. It is interesting, it goes along with the music that we've chosen, it keeps your attention as you go. So if you remember, we started with maybe 30 minutes of video and we're down to a short, sweet snippet now of just what we consider to be the best of what we shot.